Well, it's officially football time in Tennessee. Welcome to College Kickoff 2025, Tennessee Volunteers Edition. For the next 30 minutes, we'll have you covered with everything you need to know about the Vols heading into the 2025 season. To help do that, I'm joined now by Rocky Top insiders Rick Bulter, Casey K, and Ryan Sylvia will join us later. But before we get to 2025, let's look back at 2024. Rick, how would you describe last season?
Sam, I would say successful. You beat a rival in Alabama, you got a great road win at Oklahoma, and Josh Heupel's return to Norman, and then to top it all off, you go to the college football playoffs. I know the result wasn't necessarily what people were looking for, but that was a major milestone marker for Josh Heupel and his Tennessee Volunteers.
100%. Let's go back into that road to the college football playoff. The Vols dominated their opening non-conference schedule. Tennessee then welcomed Oklahoma to the SEC with a Sooners loss. Tennessee then suffered its first loss of the season at Arkansas, but turned things around with 3 straight wins against some of their biggest rivals. That included an overtime win against Florida, another cigar-filled night against Alabama, and yet another victory against Kentucky. Tennessee picked up another win against Mississippi State before falling to Georgia in Athens, and then clinching a playoff spot against Vanderbilt. The Vols had to travel north to face Ohio State, and while the fans definitely made Columbus Neyland North, the Vols fell 42-17 to the eventual national champs. Now, there was a lot of hype for Tennessee coming into the spring, but that quickly changed when Nico Iamaleava leaving rumors started to swirl. No one expected the Vols starting QB to leave, especially after reaching the college football playoff, but that's what happened. There's a lot of different stories out there on why he left. Family, money, talent around him, but ultimately Nico missed practice, and well, you can't do that, Rick. So Tennessee and Nico parted ways just one day before the spring game.
Yeah, it was certainly unexpected. I mean, we all sat there and we went through that spring training camp with Tennessee, and you didn't really expect things to go that way, but then it happens. That being said, though, it gave Tennessee an opportunity to regroup. I think the leaders of this team really stepped up and took it upon themselves to say, hey, look, this is the program we want to be. This is the type of players we want to be. And Josh Heupel, of course, echoed that same message when he talked about the situation, saying no one was bigger than the Power T and that things were going to be changing going forward.
Now, the one problem, though, was that left just 2 quarterbacks on Tennessee's roster for the spring game, redshirt freshman Jake Merklinger and true freshman George McIntyre. Merklinger served as the Vols' third-string quarterback during her first year on campus and appeared in just 2 games as he earned a redshirt. As for George McIntyre, the 4-star QB, he enrolled at Tennessee in January and had only gone through spring practice. So Josh Heupel knew he needed to bring in an experienced quarterback. The only problem, though, was the spring window was closing. There weren't many options left, so that led to the first college quarterback swap between Tennessee and UCLA. Of course, Nico transferred to the Bruins, while the Vols picked up Joey Aguilar from UCLA.
Absolutely. Spent 2 years at App State before making that transition to UCLA, and then, of course, as you said, Tennessee. But I think that the Volunteers are excited about the type of veteran player that they were able to bring to Knoxville, and we'll still see how things shake out. We have a little bit more to talk about that soon, but Joey Aguilar might be getting that shot here in Knoxville.
Yeah, that might word is important because Aguilar wasn't promised that starting spot. Josh Heupel delivered that message loud and clear at SEC Media Days.
It's a competition every single day. That's how you handle yourself. That's how you handle success. It's how you handle a bad play. It's the mastering and control and command of what we're doing offensively. All 3 of those guys know that they're going to get their opportunities. Being urgent in your preparation, going out and competing, cutting it loose, and going and playing ball. Those guys are going to have an opportunity to go compete, and best players are going to play.
The best player is going to play. Let's break down what each guy brings. 5th-year senior Joey Aguilar, obviously the most experience overall, but the least in Heupel's offense, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joey Aguilar, a gunslinger type of quarterback, a guy who wants to throw it all over the field and who can make those throws down the field. Now, Joey Halsley, the offensive coordinator, did say that Tennessee wanted to get back to some explosive plays. Who knows? Maybe Joey Aguilar could be the guy to do so.
For sure, but then there's also Jake Merklinger, who has the most experience in Heupel's offense. Obviously, he wasn't starting or playing much last year, but he did practice and take reps with a lot of the Vols that we'll see on this year's team.
Absolutely. Did not play too much during his true freshman season at Tennessee, but here reminds me of a cool, calm, and collected quarterback. We'll see
You
how
love
that
that.
might, absolutely, and we'll see how that might translate to the field. But I think he might have a shot as well. We'll have to see.
Finally, we have George McIntyre, who a lot of people thought maybe weeded out of the competition, but from what we've seen at practice, Rick, and according to Josh Heupel, that is not the case.
Absolutely, and I think with George McIntyre playing with a little bit of house money, he can go out there and just show what he has to prove, show what he can do, and who knows, maybe impress the coaches in the process.
Now, Rick, I asked you this after SEC Media Days. Who will be the starter come week 1 in Atlanta? You said Joey Aguilar. But that you wouldn't be surprised if maybe we saw more than one guy this year. So now I have to ask you, do you still believe in that, or has your opinion changed a little bit?
I hate to agree with myself, but I still do hold that feeling. I think that Joey Aguilar's experience and just the nature of him starting to orchestrate offenses in the past, I do think that gives him an edge. But like we had mentioned a second ago, you don't know who's going to be on the field for Game 2, Game 3, and so on. I think it's going to be an ongoing competition for the first couple weeks of the season, and we'll see what happens.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see the quarterback situation. Obviously, one of the major storylines heading into the season, but another question mark is who will the quarterback be throwing to? KCK and Ryan Sylvia will try to answer that question. Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks, Sam and Rick. The Vols only returned one starting wide receiver from last year's team. Brew McCoy graduated, Dante Thornton off to the NFL, and Squirrel White, well, he transferred. However, Tennessee does have a lot of young, talented wide receivers. Chris Brazzell is that lone returning starter. He finished 3rd on the team last year with over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has been banged up during the training camp, but he is expected to take on a larger workload as the veteran in the room. Then there's 5-star Mike Matthews, who played in 11 games last year and is expected to be a go-to guy in year 2. Then we have Braylon Staley, who is another young guy posed for a larger role. Moving on to the rookies, Travis Smith Jr. and Radarius Jackson. Plenty of guys that could step up. Ryan, who's standing out to you?
Well, I think you said the word, and it's young. So I'm going to look at some of the younger guys, and Mike Matthews is someone that, even though he has some experience, he got to play a little bit last year, he's still not fully immersed into the offense in terms of game action, but I think he's someone that they're going to look at to take a significant step forward and be one of the guys they can rely on throughout the year. On the other side, a true freshman, Travis Smith Jr., highly recruited guy. He's going to have his chances with all the injuries that they're already looking at in training camp a little bit, and just the nature of football where you can never kind of count week to week who's actually going to be able to go. I think Travis Smith Jr. is someone that's going to get his fair shots.
That's in the air. We're going to move on to the ground game. A little bit more experience, which is crazy to say because it doesn't seem like there's that much experience, but a little bit more than the wide receivers. Now, most of the Vols' offensive success came on the ground in those last few years, courtesy of Offensive Player of the Year Dylan Sampson. His 22 rushing touchdowns are not going to be easy to replace with just one guy, but the Vols feel they have 3 strong backs that they can rely on. Let's start with Deshaun Bishop. The redshirt sophomore is poised for a breakout season after racking up just under 500 yards with 3 touchdowns. Ryan, what do you like about Bishop?
Well, he's the most experienced guy in the room right now, and he's got 3 years under his belt to a certain degree. He was banged up in his true freshman season, but he's been in Knoxville. He's from Knoxville, a Carnes High School alum, so he knows the community, he knows the fans, and he knows the offense at this point too. So if there's someone that they can kind of quickly plug and play and make sure that the offense isn't going to have too many hiccups, I think that's the guy.
He came to Tennessee as a walk-on. He only earned his scholarship this past spring, but just because he solidified his spot on the team doesn't mean that the underdog mentality has gone anywhere.
Still that chip, that chip on my shoulder, that people still probably doubt me. People don't believe I can do it. People don't think I can live up to what the guys in front of me did, but I love it. I mean, you're always going to have doubters. I'm sure I still have people doubt me as we speak, so let them doubt, because the season's already written, and I got a lot in store that I can't wait to bring out.
Sophomore Peyton Lewis saw action in all 13 games last season. He spent time on special teams before earning a spot in the running back rotation. He also added on 3 touchdowns. Pretty successful start for the freshman guy last year, Ryan.
Yeah, I think Darrell Sims said it right. He looks like a Greek god on the practice field. He's got the size to be a power back. He's got the speed to be elusive in space. He's the total package for Tennessee in terms of upside, and he could be someone that really takes over the running back 1 position.
Absolutely, and rounding out that trio that we see in the running back room right now is Star Thomas, who is entering his 1st season on Rocky Top. But Ryan, it's his 6th of college football. What do you think that experience could do for a guy coming in to the SEC? Well,
he's the least experienced at Tennessee, but like you said, he's the most experienced in college football, so that's something that they certainly can fall back on, whether that's time at New Mexico State or his most recent season at Duke. That's high-level college football that he's played. He's a threat out of the backfield. not just as a runner, but as a pass catcher too. So being able to do those different things, I think, is something Tennessee could really use.
So overall, when it comes to the offense, a new starting quarterback, young and inexperienced wide receivers, a new running back rotation, and also a new center, which we haven't talked about yet, but we can get to that offensive line. Ryan, should fans feel nervous about Tennessee's offense heading into this season? Are you nervous? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. You definitely have to see the upsides in positions like the tight end room that's so deep, and the running back room that we just talked about, and all the talent that is at the wide receiver spot, even though it is a little bit thin. Starts on the offensive line for me, though. There's a few question marks there. You have to think Lance Hurd's going to get good. You have to think David Sanders could be really good in his true freshman season, but you kind of have to look on both sides. A lot of questions, but also a lot of talent, so it could work out well.
Let's talk about that offensive line. Only Lance Hurd coming back. David Sanders, I know he's the guy that we've pointed to during this offseason coming into fall camp. He's the guy who could really take over. What do you see from him? And then anyone else who's really standing out on the offensive line for you?
Well, David Sanders, someone that, he's still got to put on a little bit of weight, but him already putting on 40 pounds since he's gone to Tennessee, certainly a good start. So as he continues to kind of progress in the weight room and the nutrition side of things, I think that he could come along really nicely for Tennessee, and that could work out really well. And then on the interior, Sam Pendleton, transfer from Notre Dame. I think that could work out really well for Tennessee, whether that is at center like we talked about or that is over at one of the guard spots. He's someone that I think could have a really nice season.
Speaking of the centers, we don't have Cooper Mays. Last 4 years, he was the guy right in the center that the entire line, the entire offense could rely on. If you're looking at Sam Pendleton and you're looking at William Satterwhite, who is standing out of winning that battle at center?
It's tough to say. I think you have to like Pendleton and what he brings to the table in terms of experience. He got some starts in at Notre Dame. It wasn't at center. It was at one of the guard positions, but that's still high-level football that he's played in the past. So I think you have to like that in terms of having a new quarterback that you're going to have to try to get quickly adjusted. It helps to have someone experienced, but at the same time, William Satterwhite, someone that's been at Tennessee longer. So both sides of the coin there. It's tough to say exactly who right now, but I think you have to like what Sam Pendleton brings to the table.
You put all the pieces together on offense. I want you to give me a rating 1 to 10. Where do we feel like success-wise we are? 1 to 10, 1 being you don't feel like the Vol offense is going to be as successful as we've seen, or 10, you have absolute confidence that this is the offense that's going to take us down the road.
I think you have to go over 5, but maybe not close to 10. So probably somewhere in that 7 range where there's certainly things that you like. There's a bunch of talent. It's just young. So it could totally be a thing where this year maybe it doesn't fully pan out, but going forward, when you look at all those young receivers and the young running backs and the young offensive linemen, they're really building towards the future. So even if it is a 6, 7, 8 right now, it could be a 9 or a 10 in the future.
All right, well, thank you so much, Ryan. That's going to wrap up the offense for Tennessee heading into this upcoming fall. We're going to be right back with more on Tennessee's defense, which we may be a little bit more confident in. We'll tell you more after the break.
Welcome back to College Football Kickoff, Tennessee edition. Tennessee's defense was elite last year, finishing top 10 in every major category. And it all started with a deep defensive line. The Vols did lose 3 starters, but returned 2 veteran 6-year guys up front, in Bryson Eason and Dominic Bailey.
Yeah, Sam, at the end of the day, this is a Rodney Garner-led position group. And I think what we've certainly learned from Rodney Garner's stint at Tennessee here is that he is always going to provide a defensive line group that can play up to the occasion. And ultimately, you've got to be able to rely on your leaders to do that. Bryson Eason, Dominic Bailey, 2 guys who can absolutely rise to that challenge, especially Dominic Bailey, who a lot of high praise has been given to this year. So you might have lost some heavy hitters throughout the offseason, but I think that Rodney Garner's group is going to be able to reload, going to be able to come back strong, and because of those 2 guys with Eason and Bailey.
You teased that high praise for Dominic Bailey. We'll get to that, but first, Eason is coming back. It's huge for the Vols. He's a 6-year guy. He had a chance to declare for the draft, but said since he had 1 more year of eligibility, he just had to take advantage of it. Then there's his partner in crime, Dom Bailey. The duo has been together from the start, even before Coach Heupel got here. And for Bailey, he's worked his way up the depth chart each year. He's been here, and it looks like he's earned a go-to guy role in his final season.
I think right now, if we had to, vote, on an MVP of the front guys, I think Dom Bailey would win it hand down. This kid has had a, outstanding camp. Run, pass, leadership, all those things. He really stands out. in a very positive way, and obviously, I think a lot of people know when I first got here, he stood out another way, and it wasn't a good way. This kid has really earned everything that he's a blue collar, worked his tail off to get himself in this position, and he's made himself a really good SEC D lineman.
High praise for Dom Bailey there from Rodney Garner. He doesn't make statements like that very often, Rick, so that is some big words right there. But now we're going to move on to the edge. Tennessee has had multiple stars at this position. After 3 seasons of playing alongside future NFL draft picks, Byron Young and James Pierce, it's Joshua Joseph's turn to show he can be the next star, Leo.
Absolutely, Sam. And you know what? This is one of my favorite position groups to talk about here on the defense this preseason because of the talent that's in that room. You're right. It's been a loaded room in the past, but now it's Joshua Joseph's turn to step up and basically carry the torch. Now, they're behind him. We'll see what there is, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But Joshua Joseph has been waiting for this opportunity. He's earned this opportunity, and he played really well last year as well. So I think that he is primed and ready to be the guy. Even though teams are going to be spotlighting him more so this season, I think he's primed and ready to be able to take that spot and be a playmaker on this Tennessee defense.
You teed me up. Behind Joseph on the depth chart, Caleb Herring and Jordan Ross. Both have talked about a changed mindset heading into the season. For Herring, it was getting out of a hole after not playing much his first 2 seasons. He said being with family off social media helped him a lot with that. And then for 5-star recruit Ross, it was just about maturing and realizing what it takes to be a collegiate student athlete at this level.
Absolutely. 2 great stories there with those 2 guys heading into this preseason. But I really think that that's an important conversation around this defense and around what they want to be. Because, yes, you have Joshua Joseph leading the charge, but Tennessee has played well having a little bit of a deeper rotation of guys who can play at that Leo position. For Caleb Herring, we do believe that he can be a 3-down guy. I think that he is poised to take that next step. But Jordan Ross is one of the highest ceilings, in my opinion, on this team. Can he become a player who can be a 3-down type of player for this Tennessee defense? Can he be somebody who can not just rush after the quarterback, but can also play strong in the run game as well? I think that's going to be one of the most interesting challenges for those 2 guys. But when you're talking about Caleb Herring, you're talking about Jordan Ross again. 2 guys with high ceilings. I'm excited to see what they can do to be able to translate that to the field. And again, give Tennessee good depth at that spot behind Joshua Joseph's like they've had in the past.
Yeah, and if anyone can get them there, it's Coach Rodney Garner.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right, the defensive backs also big storylines there. And for that, we're going to go back to Ryan, Sylvia, and KCK.
Thanks, guys. Over to the defensive backs. They were a strong group for the Vols a season ago, in big part thanks to the emergence of Jermod McCoy in his first season on Rocky Top. McCoy finished as an All-American and led the Vols with 4 interceptions and 9 pass breakups. However, McCoy tore his ACL back in January and has been slowly working his way back onto the field. There's no timetable yet for his return, but he is back practicing and doing individual drills. Ryan, I know it's hard to kind of put a time frame to this, but any idea on when we're going to see McCoy back in action again?
No, there's nothing kind of cemented yet. You talk to Josh Heupel and the coaches, and they all kind of dance around it in some way, saying we'll see when he actually does get back to full go. But of course, it's a great step to see him in these practices, even though it's limited in some ways. I think it's a really nice sign that he's with the team. He's able to go through certain drills and do certain things, and it's certainly a good sign to get him back at some point this season because ACL injuries aren't fun. They're not an easy thing to come back from. He's trying to do it on a short window. So just taking those steps and going kind of piece by piece, it's a great sign to see him back on the field.
Now, aside from McCoy, the good thing is that the Vols have another great corner in Ricky Gibson. Gibson had a breakout season in his first season as a starter, but expected to take an even bigger step this year. Why do you think that is, Ryan?
Well, he's someone that they relied on a lot at the end of last season. And even though Jermod McCoy was so good, it almost just kind of overshadowed the play that Ricky Gibson did give Tennessee. And he had a lot of really tough matchups. You look at games like that Ohio State game where they have 3 really good receivers. Ricky Gibson was still matched up with some of the best in the country, and he not only held his own but excelled. So I think he's someone that, particularly while Jermod McCoy is recovering, they're going to rely on him a lot, and so far he's shown he can do it.
Now, we do have another defensive back that we haven't talked about yet, and that's Boo Carter. Now, there were some questions on if he would play both ways this season as he wanted to get involved on the offensive end of the ball, but those questions quickly shifted to if he was even going to play at all after missing multiple team activities before training camp. But he has been practicing with the team, as you can see here. But again, he has only been with the defense Do we think it's going to stay that way, Ryan? Or do you think, he can work his way back into the good graces of Tennessee, of head coach Josh Heupel, and maybe get a shot at offense?
It certainly feels like it's going to be primarily defense for him. Of course, you'll see him returning punts and doing things like that because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. In the thin wide receiver room, maybe that does make you try to fit him in some ways on the offensive side. But just given him trying to get his feet back under him and slowly working his way back to fully joining the team, it feels like right now, at least the majority of snaps and the large majority of snaps, it's going to be at that nickelback position for Tennessee.
I mean, defensively, they can really use him. So hopefully, keep him on that side of the ball. Maybe gets a few shot at offense, like we saw D. Williams get a few years back. But, definitely want to use him on that defensive side of the ball. Here's what Coach Heupel had to say about Booth's place on the team.
There were steps that he had to take, continue to earn his place, in the scope of what we're doing as a football team. He has taken those steps. He's continued to grow. I like what he's been able to do here, what's going to transpire. We're taking it day to day at this point, I guess is the best way to say it.
Now all four of us are back together to put a final bow on this preview before the Vols hit the gridiron. Tennessee comes in at number 24 in the AP poll. Guys, lower expectations, not as much hype. I think that's how the Vols like it, though. What would you say, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of an appropriate mark for them. You saw the number 18 mark in the coaches poll, now number 24 in the AP poll. That kind of range feels pretty appropriate, but like you said, maybe they fly under the radar a little bit, maybe catch some people by surprise to get the season going.
For a college football team, playoff team, to be at number 24, do you like being the underdog going into the season?
Well, I think Josh Heupel certainly does. I think that since his arrival to Tennessee, he's liked to kind of play that role of flying under the radar, not necessarily having all the attention on them, because this is a Tennessee football team under Josh Heupel that just likes to put their head down and get to work. And so I think that, hey, maybe the 24 isn't as high as maybe some fans would like it, but I think that Josh Heupel and company, they're ready to take that and run with it into this season.
As we look at Tennessee's schedule, here's what we have for the Vols' biggest test. Now, we got Georgia, we've got Florida, we've got Arkansas, we've got Alabama, and then we've got that first one, though, Syracuse.
That's the biggest test. I mean, what does this Tennessee team look like? There's a lot of questions offensively. First of all, who's going to be quarterback? Who's going to be at wide receiver? How do the running backs look? Can they have that same production that Dylan Sampson had with all three of them? Who's going to get the most reps? And then on defense, how does the defense look? For sure, is who's stepping up with some injuries that they might have? So there's a lot of questions, and hopefully that Syracuse game will answer some of those.
Absolutely, and I think that ultimately, when you're talking about a team at the beginning of the season, it can't look the same way at the end of the season.
Right.
You just listed 5 great games there for Tennessee, and they've got to continue to grow and evolve through those 5 games. You're right. There are a couple of question marks going into this season, but I think if Tennessee can continue to, again, keep their head down and work, but mainly grow and evolve throughout this season, then I think that they'll give themselves some good chances later in the season when it really matters the most.
Now, I know that Arkansas game really isn't a big SEC rival. You don't think of Arkansas as a big Tennessee rival, but Ryan, we were there at Arkansas last year, and that was a bad loss for this program. You can't lose to Arkansas twice. Definitely not at home either.
No, absolutely not. And that's part of the deal, too, is you can't lose that game twice, especially being at home the following year. It was a most surprising loss for Tennessee last season. I think you could say, sure, you expected maybe to lose to Georgia. You expected that's going to be tough to win on the road at Ohio State as well. But not being able to get the job done against Arkansas last year was a bit disappointing, I think, if you're a Tennessee fan. And now it'll be really interesting to see what their response is now that they welcome them to Neyland Stadium. You know the fans are going to be riled up for it, just like they were a couple years ago when South Carolina came to town after playing spoiler. And it should be one of the better games of the season.
I think when you think about Arkansas, it's that one game that, you go into the season, maybe you expect a few losses along the way in terms of Georgia, Alabama, maybe Florida. Say those are losses, then it really comes down to that Arkansas game. Like, you cannot lose that if you want to still be considered one of the powerhouses in the SEC and potentially, depending how the season goes, still contend for a college football playoff spot. I think that's also why that Arkansas game, aside from, you don't want to lose to Arkansas 2 years in a row, but aside from that, to be able to contend and even get a good bowl game that you won at the end of the season, That's that Arkansas game that I personally am really looking at, is you cannot let that one go.
You also look at the schedule. This is the year that Tennessee has to play Alabama and Florida on the road. We saw what it was like 2 years ago. Didn't bode well for the Vols. Now you're back on the road against two of your biggest rivals. What do those games look like for this team that hasn't experienced that, a very young team?
Absolutely. It's all about maturity for this team, and it's not just going to be about those home games, but it's going to be about going out on the road and playing in those hostile environments. There are fan bases that I don't know if you guys knew this, but aren't too keen on Tennessee. They're going to be, I know, they're going to be loud and they're going to be rowdy for those games. You're going to have a quarterback who might have a little bit of experience, but he might not. So I think it's going to be really interesting how Tennessee can, again, kind of grow into that maturity. But again, you've got a Josh Heupel-led team. You've got a coaching staff that's very experienced. And if they put those pieces together, who knows? Maybe they can pick up a couple surprises this season.
Thank you so much for watching College Football Kickoff 2025. We have to thank our partners here, Rocky Top Insider, Rick Butler, Ryan Sylvia, of course, KCK. I'm Sam Rothman, and we'll see you on College Football Kickoff. Tennessee taking on Syracuse to open up the season.